Every story matters. Every voice counts. Because the gospel is true and freedom in Christ is real. The world is searching for hope, for truth, for something greater. And that's why we're here, to share stories of grace, redemption, and transformation. Because everyone needs to hear it. Everyone needs to know. Jesus sets us free. This is my story. All right, guys, welcome back to My Story. This is season 5, episode 2. We are back at it. Today I'm here with a awesome friend of mine, Richard Young.
Sup?
Dude has been a huge, huge inspiration in my life. Super encouraging dude. Giving him his flowers right now, absolutely.
Praise the Lord.
Welcome, man. So it's good to have you on here, bro. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Man, good to be here. It's been a long time coming. How long have you, when did you start this podcast?
This I started back in, I want to say 2022 or 2023.
Oh,
So I've been doing it for a few years.
who's your first guest?
My first guest was a dude named Will. Man, I was drawing a blank on his last name. I forget his last name, but he was a dude shared a story about his time in the occult and issues, how he
Oh,
navigated through that.
so you were doing this before Love Reality or anything like that then?
Yes, sir. I was
Oh,
doing
okay.
this a little bit before Love Reality, actually, because I started following Love Reality in 2023. So it was probably within the same year I started this that I came across Love Reality.
So then the podcast kind of changed a little bit after that. A little bit or the
No,
same kind of vibes?
same kind of vibes. Not
That's
really.
cool, man. Introduce myself. I'm Richard. I live in Nashville, near Nashville, Tennessee, but I'm more of a Midwestern guy. My folks live in Kansas City, and I grew up in Kansas City, and all my favorite things are in Kansas City. But I've lived the longest part of my life in Nebraska,
Oh,
lived in Minnesota, born in California, lived in Georgia. So I've been all around, but my main thing is I love to preach the gospel. I love to tell people about what was accomplished by Jesus's death, burial, and resurrection. And that I love to work with guys on how they're thinking. One of the key aspects is now that we've been set free from sin, we must now think accordingly. We must set our minds on the things uh, of the Spirit. And so learning all about that and teaching guys how to set their mind on the things of the Spirit has been, yeah, just super, super fun for my life. So that's kind of what I do, man.
awesome,
That's what I
man.
do. Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks for sharing that. So where does your story start, man? You can kind of just get started for wherever that starts, and yeah, let's hear it.
Sure. Yeah, man. Grew up with a beautiful, loving home, parents who loved me. I have a twin sister and an older brother, and we had an amazing childhood with parents who really cared. They tried to make things very special for us. And I think, as I got to be a teenager, I think at one point I really I used to be kind of funny. Like I think it was probably around the seventh or eighth grade. I started learning about jokes.
So you're a class
Before
clown.
that, I wouldn't say I was a class clown, but I was funny.
Yeah.
I was the funniest guy in the class, but I got in trouble, so I wasn't a
Oh,
class clown in that
there you
sense.
go.
But I found out that making people laugh and being funny was super important to me. And I had a buddy, and we would just want to make each other laugh. And so my mom says she would say that I used to be the perfect kid until I tried to be funny. And so I started being funny, and then I got really into sports. I got really into basketball, and I like that became my life, just playing basketball. I would just come home from school and I would go outside and I would dribble around my whole neighborhood. I had like 5 different hoops that I would go to in the neighborhood and just spend like 30 minutes at each hoop. And the people knew me there at the homes and they didn't care if I shot at their hoop. And that's what I would do. And I just got for me at basketball. And then I played college. And I think in college is where like identity shift started to take place because I didn't play on the team my second year, and I was in this relationship and it wasn't going great. And I think a lot of sadness came in that year where
Mm.
like me and this young lady broke up. It was dramatic. Um, I wasn't on the team, and then the next year I played on the team and it didn't work out. I felt like I got scapegoated that year on the team.
Hmm.
And so just kind of a lot of stuff was going on. I think college is underrated for being like there's so much heavy stuff that happens. So much heavy stuff that happens. And then I met a young lady my last year of college and we really liked each other, but we just couldn't get along. And so I knew if like we just get along, then maybe we'll get married, but we really couldn't. And we were bad for each other. We were both super, 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 super sensitive. Um, we took everything personally. We took like
Hmm.
just everything was an affront. And we woke up this one time. I was just like, yeah, I'm not like I really like you. I really love you, but we're just not getting along. And we just like we thought if we could just figure out how to get along, we'll be all right. So we tried harder to get along. And my twin sister, she got married in Christmas of 2007, and me and this young lady, her name's Natalie, we got married 6 months later in June of 2008.
This is the same girl that you almost broke up with?
The same girl I almost broke up
Oh.
with, yeah. And then we got married and super different backgrounds and uh and we both came from the same denomination, but we had very different backgrounds. And so
Mm.
we started marriage off and it was rocky. And it was rocky and I was trying my hardest, but like the culture of my family that I grew up in, I'm Hispanic. I'm half Hispanic, half white, but the culture of my family was Hispanic and hers was not. And so there was a lot of friction. We couldn't get along. And then I desperately, for that reason, I think I just desperately needed her approval. I needed her to like
Mhm.
me. And I wasn't getting that. And so, yeah, that became this journey of my life. Like I I didn't feel like I needed approval from everybody, but I needed approval from her.
Mm.
And I think she felt a similar way, but the dynamics of relationships, it's usually the guy that ends up chasing, and that becomes super, super unattractive. To be seeking approval is very unattractive. What's attractive is not needing approval, but we end up chasing. And I ended up getting this job in Minnesota as a dean at an academy, and it was going well in some sense, but in another sense, I was like really frustrated with what was going on in the house. We had two kids by this time, and yeah, I just got obsessed with coaching basketball now. Like like that was my obsession was like to be the best coach I could be because still basketball was like a huge, huge, huge my life. And then I got this job to be a principal of an academy where I grew up in Kansas City. So we moved back there. The marriage was not going great, but at this point we'd been together, 12 years, 13 years, and we got down there and that's when I got introduced to the gospel. So, any questions about all what I just said? I know I just said a bunch of stuff. I don't know if it makes sense because
Yeah,
it's just my experience. So I
yeah,
can,
it's making you can it's all
yeah,
good.
man. So then we get down to Kansas City, and I had a buddy of mine from before I was working in Minnesota. His name's Tyler, and we became really good buddies when he had come to Union, where I was working. Right after I graduated college at Union, I started working at the college, and we'd become really tight. And he had gotten married, and his wife had found out that he had had a porn addiction since like age 11, and she had ended up leaving him when she found out about this porn addiction. And she's finding out about this. This is the first year I moved down to Kansas City. So this is 2018-19 school year. I think before, my life used to be lived in school years. Now it's not.
Yeah.
Um, and so fall of 2018, there's this like I hear this news of buddies who like I was in his wedding to they got like their marriage is falling apart. They've been married for maybe 2 years,
Mm.
1 or 2 years. And I go up there and we're hanging out and we're just praying about his marriage and things are fine. I mean, things are like he seems to be fine, even though the circumstance is not. not going fine. And one day he tells me about this guy that he called named Jonathan Leonardo. And I know Jonathan because when I was in high school, he went to a school about 5 hours away, but we would meet up tournaments, and he was the best player on his team.
Hmm.
And so I knew who he was. I don't think he really knew me that well because I was a sophomore when he was a senior. And but we played against each other and he was the man. And then through the years, I would see him preaching, and I remember I was sitting next to Tyler where he had come to the college I was at, and he preached. And I remember sitting in the congregation, and I just felt like this brother is just saying fancy words, like he wants to sound impressive, but I wasn't getting anything from what he was saying. Like I did not, and maybe it was like insecurity because I did not understand what he was saying. Because he was up on the stage and he was so excited. And he was like, "Go, guys, I can't leave before telling you this." And then he would unpack this thing, and I'm like, "I don't know why that's important." Like, so I didn't understand what he was saying. And then a couple years later, I met up with him at a different university, Andrews, he was living, and we just kind of caught up like, "Oh, what's up, dog? Oh, yeah, like how it is." It wasn't anything like we really were friends. So sometimes people will be like, "Oh, Richard and Jonathan have known each other for 20 years or something." We've known about each other. We didn't really, we weren't homies or anything like that. But he
Yeah.
tells me that he had spoke. My buddy Tyler tells me he was talking to Jonathan about some stuff, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I know Jonathan. Oh okay." And to be honest, yeah, of Jonathan being able to speak life into Tyler because
Uh,
I was always like kind of the mentor in Tyler's life. I'm 8 years older than Tyler. Tyler was going like I had advised him on like dating his girlfriend and getting married and all this stuff. But it
yeah.
seemed to be like in this situation with this thing, I wasn't the one who helped him. And
How dare
so,
somebody else speak life into
yeah,
your life?
what is going on? So I was like, huh, interesting. But I wasn't really like, I wasn't, I
Yeah.
was happy that Tyler was doing all right. And then, meanwhile, in my life, from time to time, at this point, I would struggle with porn, and it would be like I would go for months and months without looking at it, and then I would binge out on a weekend, and
Mm,
then I would feel so terrible. I would go months and months. Probably when I was younger, I think I've been blessed with the internet not being as powerful as it was when I
yeah.
was a young kid.
Yep.
Um, and so, and I was really wanted to be struggling with it. I bought all these books. I would consider it, think about it all the time.
Yeah.
And but when we moved to Kansas City, I was like, this is it. I'm not going to be messing with this anymore. I got two accountability partners, one on Monday, who's a buddy of mine, and another one on Wednesday, who is this buddy of mine. And we were just going to check in every week. And it was going all right. We would check in, just hold each other accountable, but because of my job was so busy, like I wasn't looking at, I was like, man, I'm here to do this job. God put me
Time for
here.
it.
Yeah. But this other thing was going on where because my marriage, like, and when you think about marriage, I've been thinking about this lately. Your marriage pretty much is your thoughts and feelings for your spouse at that time.
Hmm.
Like, and the thoughts and feelings that I felt for my wife was resentment because she was just hard. She was just bitter and sad because we had moved to Kansas City and she had loved Minnesota. And so I felt all of that, and her bitterness made me resentful towards her. And then I'm working at this job that people like me and people think I'm doing a good job. And so I
Yeah.
was
Real quick.
enjoying that.
So that kind of goes back to you said your wife, you felt like she was like you wanted her approval, but you weren't getting it. So the people where you're going, they liked you. So there's that approval that you're looking for, so to speak. Is that correct?
For sure, man. I always wanted her approval, but if I couldn't get it from her and I started to get it from this other people, that felt really good. And I felt like, see, people do me. It's like this petulant child. I am likable.
I'll show
And
you.
so, yeah. And so, this one, like, she really liked me. She thought I was funny, and we
Mhm.
would, joke. And one day I was driving to get something to eat, and I thought, I bet if I went over here, like a thought just popped into my head, and I didn't understand how thoughts work back then, or why you even get thoughts. I know much more about that now, but back then I just thought, oh, that's me. Like if I have a thought, like I owned it, like that's me. And the thought was this would love me, and read between the lines. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, I could cheat on my wife, and that freaked me out. That really freaked me out because I've like I'm a good kid.
Mhm.
I would never do that. And so next day I was driving up for meetings to a different part of the country, and I ended up talking on the phone with this person, and we talked way too long, and it was way too comfortable, and it felt way too good, and I knew I couldn't tell my wife about it. So I was like, oh man, I'm digging my grave right now. And so
Mhm.
uh, my buddy Tyler happened to live in that town that I was traveling to, and we were going to get together to watch basketball. And we were watching our team play, and our team was losing. And I was like, hey, man, this is how guy relationships work. We have to like do some sports or talk about something else first, and then we start opening up to each other.
Yeah.
And so I said, I got to tell you this thing, man, because I'm afraid. And he's like, what? What happened? So I kind of break the situation that's happened in like the last week and how I'm nervous about my marriage and I'm nervous that I'm going to ruin my life because of, all this stuff because this feels too good. And he said, well, Richard, don't you know sin has no power over you? And I was like,
What?
what do you mean sin has no power over me? He's like, well, sin itself, it has no power. I'm like, well, if sin has no power, then why am I going through this? He's like, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. He's like, sin itself, like what's your relationship to sin? And I was like, "Oh, what kind of an abstract question is this? What's my relationship to sin? So I started thinking, well, I haven't been looking at porn recently, but there's this other thing. And so, and I didn't know how to answer his question. And so he's like, look, Richard, this is what Romans has to say. And he took me to Romans 6. And I didn't understand anything of what it was saying, but I
Yeah.
knew that I really wasn't even listening to him. I wasn't paying attention because I think I was offended that he was helping me. Like the
Yeah.
roles had been reversed
Yeah.
and I'm not used to this. And so I was offended that he was helping and I wasn't listening. And then I think God just was like revealed that to me in that moment that I wasn't listening and that I was offended. And maybe instead of being offended and not listening, I should pay attention. So in that moment, I started paying attention to what he was saying because it seemed like he knew more about what he was talking about than I knew what was happening in my own life. So he starts explaining Romans 6 and he gets to Romans 6, 7. He's like, look, one who's died has been set free from sin. And so he's breaking down this idea that sin has no power over us because we died to it and we're free from sin. And that, like, now I'm kind of more open, but it was still an abstract idea that I didn't quite grasp because it's not the way I had thought about sin before.
Hmm.
And then he starts breaking this idea down that I'm not a sinner.
That's a big one.
And in earlier testimonies, I haven't really talked about this because when someone hears that they're not a sinner, they get scared.
And
Like call it a heresy to say
yeah.
you're not a sinner. And they'll go to verses like First John 1:8. They'll go to verses like Romans 3:23. And they think that when I say I'm not a sinner, that means that I've never sinned or I don't.
Or you have no sin, right?
Yeah, I have no sin. I've never sinned, and there's no opportunity, like I'll never have an opportunity to sin, or I'm sinless. But the idea of not being a sinner is that, like, this is the category you were in before Christ, but now you've moved from death to light. You've moved from darkness to light. You're
Mhm.
no longer in this category, and this category is very specific to people who are enemies of God, for people who don't know God, not people who are a part of his royal priesthood, not people who are in the family of God. And so when he's like, you're not a sinner, I was like, oh. And that flipped a switch. And he asked me, Richard, are you? And I knew that my behavior hadn't been righteous, quote unquote, but I knew that Jesus somehow, like, I knew that like the gospel was or righteousness by faith is that I'm righteous by something that Jesus has done, not by my own works, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, yeah, I guess. And he said, when it comes to righteousness, you're not on a journey. You're
Mhm.
at the destination.
Shoot.
And my background is in Seventh-day Adventism, and for someone to say that you're at the journey of anything or you're at the destination of anything in Adventism is like it's an affront to sensibilities. It's
Yeah.
yeah, don't like it
Yeah. I
because
used to think that actually.
you can never believe that you've actually arrived because then you'll stop
Yeah.
growing if you've arrived, right?
Yeah.
And maybe if you've arrived, that's like you can sin now.
Yeah.
But when he said that, I was, and the answer was because of Jesus. So I went home after that, and yeah, everything was different. Like my sin consciousness, I wasn't just focusing on sin anymore. I was focusing on my righteousness.
Hmm.
I was focusing on what God had done. And I started having these conversations in the office. Uh, I I had an office, at the school. I was a principal of a school, and I had an office, and I would very rarely be in there because I didn't like being alone. I would come to the front office, and I would sit in there with the registrar, and we would just sit there like on an afternoon, and we would just chat a little bit, and the janitor would come in, and would just sit there, all three of us, and we would just, and so I started talking about some of these things, like because like these ideas were like, wow, this is, and
Can't help but talk about it. And that's the
yeah,
thing. That's the thing, Richard. Like when you look at the gospel, when you read it in the scripture, it's like these people, when they heard the gospel, they couldn't help but share it. Even many times when they would see the miracles of Jesus, Jesus would say, "Shut up, keep this quiet, don't talk about it." And what they do, they'd go talk about it because you can't help but share the life-giving power that you have learned.
yeah, man, no, man, I couldn't shut up about it, and I'm learning more and more, and Tyler tells me about this thing called Love Reality, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what is that? And so he sends this sermon series, and it's Jonathan preaching it at this academy. And so I'm listening to the whole thing. And if I'm being honest, it was hard for me to understand. And maybe it's because I'd known Jonathan before, and before I'd like made up my mind that he was too hard to understand. And Jonathan likes to say, I'm not speaking fast, y'all are listening slow. And so I was definitely listening slow. And but then Tyler sent me this sermon by Dan Moeller. And I start listening to these sermons by Dan Moeller. And this stuff is making a lot of sense. And Dan Moeller is preaching Romans 6. He's preaching sin consciousness. He's preaching identity. And he's just going hard. And
Mhm.
I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh. And all of it is like calling back to this conversation that I'd had with Tyler. And I'm like starting to connect the dots. And I'm reading Romans 6 a little bit more and trying to wrap my head around what it's actually saying. And so I'm reading Romans 6, I'm reading Ephesians 1, and I start having like secret place time where I'm just focusing on one verse, not like reading chapters of the Bible because sometimes in Adventism it's not righteousness by faith, it's by devotionals. And so if you have devotionals, then you're good. And it's like make everything from the Bible into some formula
Mhm.
and some steps. And if you figure out the formula and you figure out the steps, then you'll be all
Good.
right. And so, but I wasn't having devotionals in the way like I used to like do it to check off like, okay, me and God are good. I was doing it because I was like actually believing and putting into practice and like becoming the things that
Mhm.
the scripture was saying. And so through that spring, I'm listening to Dan Moeller. Because of Dan Moeller, I'm now able to hear what Jonathan is saying. And now Jonathan's starting to make more sense. But it's still like a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving parts. And we're trying to at the school, we're trying kids to come to the school. We're thinking about how we're going to recruit, and we decide like that I should preach at all the churches around since I'm okay at preaching. And I hadn't really preached a ton. I still don't really preach a ton, but I was going to preach at this church and it was going to be about education. And I thought about it and I came up with like an intro about education. And then I was like, I'm just going to send gospel. I'm not going to plan anything. I just had my intro, and my intro was going to be Ephesians 1 3 through 6. And then said, I was going to say, what if we really believe this? And so that Sabbath, I got up and all I knew was my intro and I knew Ephesians 1 3 through 6. and I just preached, man. And I went on for
Took
50
over.
minutes. I went on for 50 minutes. I looked up at the clock and I realized, like, oh, like it was past time to be done. And so I just wrapped it up then. And that afternoon, we were driving around, and my wife, who still was having a hard time with me, she was like, "Your sermon was great." I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
wow." And I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Well, because the gospel's so good." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, let's go." Like, it's so good. And I had called or I was texting with Jonathan. I got his number from Tyler, and I was like, "Hey, man, I want a Love Reality t-shirt because this sermon series was so powerful. Now that I'd started to understand it a little bit, I was like, I want a Love Reality t-shirt." And there was no controversy about Love Reality. It wasn't really a thing. It was just Jonathan was calling his sermon series that he had gone around, and he's calling it Love Reality. And so it wasn't a big deal. I was like, yeah, let me get a t-shirt. And he's like, well, I'm going to be in Lincoln at the end of September. Why don't you just come up and we'll link up and I'll give you a t-shirt. I was like, bet. And so that's what happened. On the way to Lincoln, on the way for this whole thing to happen, I found out a buddy of mine was married to this guy who had cheated on her. And his understanding of the gospel, it had then set him free. And I was like, what? Because this buddy, like this story had been a scandal a couple years before that, either a year or a couple years before that. Like we had all, like it had hit Facebook and everyone had, I didn't know this guy, but I knew her, and it looked crazy embarrassing. One of those things that like afterwards you're sitting at the table, the dinner table, and you're like, saw that thing? You
Mm.
saw what happened to Jayla? Yeah, man, that's wild. And I had met this guy Ed once, and I didn't really like him. He felt kind of he had an agenda. And so then I'm gonna pick them at the Kansas City airport to drive to Lincoln for this weekend to hang out with Jonathan and Tyler and all these people. And someone called me up and they're like, "Don't don't go, don't be with Ed Cornejo, that and this."
This was somebody from where you were.
This was somebody that I knew when I was working in a
Okay.
union,
Hmm.
and they were very big on like believing all women. This is like right after the Me Too movement. And so this was like this guy sexually assaulted somebody, and so you can't be affiliated with him. And I was like, "Oh man, this is kind of difficult. What am I supposed to do?" Because like the stuff I've been learning has been changing my life, and it seems like this guy believes that stuff too.
Yeah.
So how can I know my experience, and if he has a similar experience, like what like that, it was puzzling to me. Like, what can I do? And so I picked them up at the airport, and like I said, I went to high school with Jayla, but we hadn't been friendly for years, and so we're just kind of catching up. And then they tell their whole story on the drive. It's a 3-hour drive from Kansas City to Lincoln, and they tell their whole story about what had happened with this their marriage, this adultery, and then the sexual assault.
Mm.
And they're just
So
talking
that they're
about it.
just telling it freely. Like they're like, hey, by the way,
Oh yeah, but they're going into detail.
ooh,
And it's like painful detail, like
mm.
of the heartache and pain and like yeah, like but they're telling it like it's just another story, which was blowing my mind. I was like, you don't have to go into detail. And she was like, no, I want to. And I was like,
That's how you
oh,
know they healed. That's how
yeah.
you
I
know.
was like, oh, like I was uncomfortable more than they were uncomfortable. We get to Lincoln and we go to this church. This is where I met Annabelle for the first time. And she's like, Jonathan, like I give a little testimony. Jonathan does a little testimony. That night it was there was probably like 15 of us or something. It wasn't a lot of people. Christian was there. Um, and Drew and Mylan, like some buddies from Lincoln. And but there was like healing, like people were healed, people were praying healing. And like this is not something I'm familiar with. And then the next morning I see Tyler's wife, Morgan, who at this point is through with him because before he was just addicted to porn. Now he's a Jesus freak, and she's not about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, at that time, on that day, like Morgan gets free. And like this is the first 2 episodes of my podcast, That's a Life,
Mm.
where we tell this story and we tell it in a lot of detail. So if you're interested, you can hear it. I can't do it justice right here, but
Hmm.
Like this beautiful thing that happens. And at this point, like what had opened up to me was that God was bigger than I thought.
Mm.
And the way he operated, I was like, this is different. This is different than how he operates, because of the cultural background, my Adventist cultural background. And after this, like I knew everything was different. And I was driving home, and Tyler and I were on the phone. We're just crying. We're just like, "Whoa, this crazy stuff has happened."
Mm.
And two days later, my wife, she had like this and just got set free from a bunch of lies that she had been believing. And I thought that was going to take forever. But she started just like there was this huge in our marriage, just like we were like, no, we're not going to live by lies anymore. We're going to see each other for what's true.
Yeah.
And so then from that moment, and this was early October of 2019, my life was changed. I thought it had been changed that year, and it was, but then like the reality of like what my life was going to be about, because after that, I ended up getting fired for pretty much believing I was free from and dead to sin. And yeah, then the controversy about love reality really started to kickstart
So this was an
right
Adventist
around.
school you were a dean for,
I was a principal of an
or a
Adventist
principal?
school.
I mean, yeah, principal.
Yeah, then the controversy over love reality it jump started probably in November of that year. Ended up getting fired right after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So like the month of February of 2020, right before COVID really hits,
Hmm.
is the month of me getting fired, get fired, and then the school, we go online, we go to Zoom because of COVID, and then yeah. So that's the story of like me like coming to this thing. Was like 2019 was the year of all of this stuff landing, and then me seeing miracles that I'd never seen before take place, and then the controversy over what I believe. That was all happening in 2019, and then 2020 the world changed, not just COVID, but my world changed forever.
So dig into that a little bit. What happens next? How does
Oh,
what does your life look like after that?
yeah, man. I'll tell you what, man, that was really hard. That was really difficult. I had been like, because the gospel came in and changed my marriage and changed my life, it was not hopeless, but going through it was very hard. And not in the sense that I was going to give up anything of what I believed, but in the sense that, oh, my future is in the balance here. Like I'm a young man at this point. I'm still in my 30s, and I was like I had this plan, a specific job for
Mm.
years and years, and I was a leader in my community, and then all that got taken away. Like my it's got taken away, and I was seen as like I was kind of like an embarrassment. And I
All over the
started working
gospel.
at, pardon me,
All over the gospel because of this
all
idea.
over that I got fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I believe they thought I was saying that it wasn't possible for me to sin, that we holy flesh. These are all these things from fear, old Adventist heresies that people were saying that we were doing because they didn't understand what we were saying.
Hmm.
And so then I started working at an Amazon warehouse, and I did that for a half a year. And there's a bunch of awesome stories from that time where I was just able to speak over people.
Mm.
Like I was working at this warehouse, I was working nights, and I was just shining, just being salt and light wherever I went. Like I refused to feel sorry for myself. My whole life before that, I was feeling sorry for myself, but I refused to feel sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And then around the Super Bowl the next year, if you don't remember, the Chiefs were now playing Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. My life in the been all surrounded around what was going on with the Chiefs at that time. And I was like, we went up to Lincoln in the middle of COVID, in the direct middle of COVID. Everybody came. This is when I met Justin Koo. This is where I met Justin Goodwin. I met all of these people that are been in my life now for many years. We met them in Lincoln, and we just got together, and it was like this amazing thing. And on the drive home, I was like, I can't work at Amazon anymore. I was like, I'm gonna quit Amazon, and we've been living in my parents' basement, and I was like, we're gonna find a new place to live. I'm gonna get a job. I'm not gonna be working at Amazon. And I decided I was gonna tell my dad that I was like, I'm done. And so, but I want to take advantage of his generosity, so I wanted to tell him so he could know that I was going for it. I wasn't. And so I told him that, and then I don't know if it was an hour later, Jonathan and Tyler called me and they're like, "Why don't you work with us at Love Reality?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." Like this is the day I've decided I'm gonna do something different. And they show up and they're like, "Yeah, why don't you work with us?" And I was like, "Cool." And so on the strength of me being able to make some kind of living through Love Reality, it wasn't what I was making before at the school, but it was going to be okay. On the strength of that, Natalie and I decided, all right, let's move. And I knew where we were going to move. We were going to move to Tennessee because this is where she's from. And we moved down here. We got down here August of 2021. And I've been working for Love Reality ever since 2021 in some way or capacity. We started the podcast in October of 2020. We just passed 250 episodes. And I was focused on that. We were doing all these Bible study circles. And then, you know, then the controversy about Love Reality just kicked up another notch. And ever since then, it's just been getting kicked up a notch after notch after notch. And yeah, through that, like some hard times where you're like, what's going to happen? And, God has been faithful and we've seen change. We've seen miracles. Like I've seen more miracles and brought more people to Christ than I'd ever have even considered that it would be possible for me to do before that. Like I don't think, I know I hadn't brought one person to Christ. I maybe would have an encouraging word for a student or something. And I'd been, loved kids and stuff, but not really brought anyone. And yeah, I can't tell you. I can't, I don't, I can't tell you how many people now
Hmm.
that just, I've seen miracles. I've seen crazy stuff, man. Healing. It's just, but yeah, man, it wasn't the easiest route, man. It wasn't road, but nothing good is ever really that easy.
No, not.
There's like I skipped over like what is gonna happen? But through this time, the friendships that I've made, man, life-changing friendships.
Yeah.
Life-changing friendships.
Compares to it.
People that I'm gonna like we're in this for eternity. Like it's not it's not a thing.
You know, so you guys have been doing like the circles stuff since like 2021, you said, or 2020?
Man, we started in 2020 doing the Wave 1 online.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into like, hey, we should do some Monday nights. And then I did one with Savannah Louie on Wednesday mornings. And then and Addison were doing one and Jadra was doing one. I was doing another one, I would do one Monday nights. I did one Tuesday afternoons. I did one Wednesday morning. Like we were just doing Bible study after Bible study. Then it just started getting built up and we were like, okay, we should do it this way. And um so yeah, I've been doing that ever since probably 2021 is when we started doing more like everyone was sharing their own version like we were all doing different wave ones. So we've been online as a part of an online community since COVID.
Man, like I wish I had knew about this sooner. It's crazy how I didn't find out because like I had knew Justin. I think I knew about Justin.
Who told you about Love Reality? The
Koo.
podcast.
It was
Oh, you
Justin
were
Koo through
following him?
his no through his Instagram. I remember Matthew Olam. You know who Matthew
Yeah, I
Olam.
know, man, for
He
sure.
There was like this thing Justin was doing about like the empty pews to 1,000 views or something like that. Like there was something going on during that. I forget what year it was, but I was in some group chat with Matthew Olam and Justin Koo was the one who started that group. But he wasn't. I didn't really see Justin super active in there like he would be. Like if like we're about to do a Zoom call or whatever, but and then I saw him like interview at Alan Parr
Okay,
on Alan Parr's page, and then
for sure. I remember
I
that.
really got to know, oh, this Justin Koo guy, like, and then I saw his video on Instagram that said something about good. And dude, I was on Bible studies. Like 2020 was like Zoom Central. Like you were always like I was joining the Central California Conference Zoom calls with Anil Kanda and all them guys. I never knew about Love Reality until I saw Justin Ku's post about that good. And then I learned about Internet Church. And I was like, surely you guys must be doing more than just internet church and Sundays. Like I started asking around, people kept talking about Death to Life podcast. And so I was like, okay, I'll start listening to that. But I didn't know about your Death to Life on Mondays. I didn't know about the Made New. I didn't know about Jadra and Michaela. And then I learned about those things. It's like, dude, like there's like a Bible study like every day, pretty much. And
Pretty
that's
much.
when I started growing in the gospel and learning about these things. I wish I knew it sooner
I
because
feel like I've known you forever, bro. Like there's some people that get a part of our community and I'm just like, oh, we've been friends forever. And that
yeah, it
is
feels
like,
like that.
but I have 2023, that's not that long ago.
It's been a few years, but ever
Yeah.
since COVID started, it's like everything feels like a flash. Like I feel like 2017 was just last year, and all of a sudden it's 2026. Like we're 10 years.
Mercy.
What? Like it doesn't make sense, dude.
That's crazy.
But ever since COVID, things just seem to like fly by really fast.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's only been 3 years, dude. But it's been awesome because the message of the gospel through Love Reality has changed my life. So I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God using that. Like, I mean, I'd be here. Obviously, I don't think I'd be dead, but I wouldn't be where I am
Yeah.
as a man, like as a person, like growing. And dude, it took
Praise the
away my
Lord.
anxiety. It took away my depression. It took away my fear of Jesus knew you, all that stuff. Like when I fall short, I'm like, okay, I just confess it and take it to God. I don't dwell on it. I don't make this thing an issue of my. So yeah, dude, I wish I knew about this sooner. There's some things in my life that maybe would have been different if it wasn't for, if I had knew
Sure,
sooner.
man.
But
Sometimes I think about that. Sometimes I think, and this is something that I've put in my mind that now when I think of this, I try to let it go. But
mm,
oh, I would have known this stuff when I got married, then all of this, and then I realized, well, I know it now.
yeah,
Why don't I move from it now?
about the past.
Yeah, man. Like thinking about the past is literally just a mind game.
Yeah, because you can't go back. You
It's a waste of time, bro. It's like
can't.
it's not gonna change a thing for you.
Right.
So, like, I know it now, might as well move from it now.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
for sure, man. So what are you doing now in your life? How does life look like now for you? And
Oh, more of the same, man. I started a coaching program where I help guys. It's called Free from Porn. So now I do a podcast where I'm trying to help guys see how to change their mind. And so much of the time we're just not okay inside. We're not okay with what's going on. We're not okay with ourselves. And so we use religion to make us okay. We use um, porn to make us okay. We use drugs, alcohol, relationships. We use all of these things to make us okay rather than just asking ourselves, well, why am I not okay? What's the thing that's keeping me from being okay? And the truth is, the thing that's keeping us from being okay is so much of how we think and the thoughts that are brought to our consciousness that we dwell on.
mm-hmm.
And so I try to help guys to understand that you start from being okay. And when these thoughts come in, we can actually let them go. And the thoughts that come in are actually super helpful because when you let them go, you're removing the thing that keeps you from being okay. Because in Christ, our default is we've been seated in heavenly realms,
Mm-hmm.
we've been raised with Christ. So seeking things that are above really means that we're setting our mind on those things, and whenever something from our old life or old patterns of thinking come up, we can let those things go. So
Yeah.
being able to teach guys that you're okay. Like you don't need the circumstances to change. You don't need porn. You don't need food. You don't need like all of these things that we thought would make us okay. They were placebos. They weren't the real deal. We needed to be okay from a deeper realm. Like we needed to understand like spiritually we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're okay this way, let me think differently. And
Yeah.
so the
Think
gospel,
according.
the gospel has come, like it is true. Let us think differently now. So being able to walk with guys and teaching them this, like the stuff that I've learned about how to think differently, what thoughts even are, why they come, and how we can while they're there, center our consciousness on truth rather than whatever pops into our mind. Man, that's been super fun and it's been growing me and stretching me. But I hope some of the guys have been blessed. I know they have been blessed, and I know we've seen some victory.
Oh yeah, I can attest to that.
But it's been a blessing to me. It's been a huge blessing to me. Um, because spiritual growth really is about learning how to handle the things that happen in our lives. Like, let's just take this right now. You and me, it's Sunday, February 15. Like, our lives are good.
Yeah.
Our lives are great. Now, you get in the car and you start driving and somebody flips you off. All of a sudden, oh man, I was on the podcast with Richard this morning. Everything was great. But now, 3 hours later, this dude flipped me off.
And now I'm
Spi-
angry. Right.
Yeah, spiritual growth is about actually looking at that and being like, everything's actually still fine. There's no difference between, what happened this morning on the podcast to what's going on right now. The only difference is I don't believe it's fine. I am not okay inside. There's something that's changed in me, but that doesn't mean that like my life isn't good. My life is still good. And so when we feel that change, when we have that to get angry or to get low or you know to be in suffering, we can let that guy that flipped us off, we can just let it go.
Yeah.
We can let that go. And then bigger, like we start with the small stuff, letting this thing go, like weather. You know, everything's fine until it starts raining on your birthday. Why did it have to rain on my birthday?
Because it just did.
It's because of the weather works the way the weather works. It has to do with you.
Yeah.
And so like why lose any sleep or any kind of the weather? And so when you start learning that you don't have to lose anything about the weather, then everything actually then becomes the weather. Like because we're not in control of anything. Like the only thing we're in control of is how we're stewarding our hearts and our lives when things come in, like when the circumstances change. And so, but learning that like this is a practice, learning how to think of things because we've thought about things the other way for so long that everything was good until the circumstances weren't. And then we've decided that the circumstances need to be exactly how we want for us to be okay rather than us to just be okay.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then the circumstances come and go. And so, man, that's been super fun. Because breaking out of any addiction or getting victory and like grabbing onto any victory in addiction is actually a very spiritual thing. And people that go through that become deeper spiritual people, man. And so, yeah, in the coaching program that I do, certainly about freedom from, the urges and how to deal with urges. We go much deeper than that. It's kind of what I was just talking about. How are we looking at our lives? Why are we letting the weather change how we feel? We
Mhm.
can have love, joy, peace, patience, faithfulness, goodness, kindness, gentleness,
Yeah.
self-control at all times. It's so super fun, man. It's been a huge blessing.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate the time and digging into your story, man. Awesome. It's good
Yeah,
to hear.
man, we were circling. We have it now. We have it on wax, and it can go out to the people for when did we do your podcast on life? How long ago was that?
Uh,
It all like meshes together for me.
I want to say it was was it? No, it wasn't last year. Maybe it was this past summer. Oh yeah, so it was last year. So I think it
Yeah.
was like sometime like August, September-ish, I think.
Really?
October
I would
maybe.
I would have thought it would have way before that. Like I said, like I'm doing one every week. It all just like I don't even know
Yeah.
when they were up there.
Yeah, I know because my grandmother died in October and we did way before that. So yeah,
Okay.
it was before October. Because I don't remember because I haven't really done a lot of stuff since that. Like even 9 months ago was my last testimony video, and I just interviewed James Newberry last weekend, and that was like the first video since 9 months that
Is
I've
that one already up?
not yet. I'm gonna be putting it up this coming Friday.
Cool.
So yours will be up in a couple weeks.
Cool, 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 cool.
Yes, sir. I'll be putting out some reels though, so you'll be seeing some little snippets.
Let's go.
So, all right, bro. Let's pray this out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Heavenly Father, thank you for Rich. Thank you for the influence he's had in my life and many others. I pray your blessings on him, Lord, and his family, and those he comes in contact with, and the guys he's mentoring, Lord, including myself. Lord, thank you for your faithfulness in his life and in my life and in those that we have come in contact with. Lord, we give you the glory and the honor, and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.